Over these 4 videos, we're going to be looking at creating digital content in G Suite Tools. That's going to give us a great opportunity to provide equitable access for students through accessibility tools. We're also going to see how we can leverage the power of Google Classroom to distribute this mathematical learning across our class. And we're also going to look at flipped learning so that you can preload the learning and have your students come into the lessons powered up, ready to go with mathematics. Let's get started. Okay, I've opened up Equatio in this document here. So if you imagine a student writing their piece of work, and in this example we're working on inequalities. On paper they can write the inequality incorrectly, and you've got to wait until you pick up the book in order to address that misconception. There's some great options with Equatio because of the prediction option. So when you start typing in some mathematics, there is a prediction that comes up, and this might really help address some of the misconceptions that students are having. So get them writing in Equatio straight into a document, and you can start to address some of the misconceptions that might pop up in your classroom. One example of that might be squared and square root. Initially something that students get confused about, particularly which symbols represent which. Start to type in SQU and you'll notice that squared and square root and their symbols come up. A great way to address that misconception. One of the other misconceptions you might need to address is when a student is writing over or saying over, whether they mean over the one particular term or over both terms. So while the written option may not always address that, there are other options for you. So I've switched onto my Asus Spin 11. The reason for that is it's stylus enabled, rugged device, really good for the classroom. So what we're going to do is have a look at the writing option through Equatio into a Google Doc. So we can now write out our full expression with the quotient in the right place, and we can address that misconception potentially by then writing it rather than having to type it or say it. If you want to get any of these tools from TextHelp, then follow the link that's coming up in a moment. And don't worry about what device you're on. I'm accessing through Google Chrome, but whatever device you're on, there's an option for you. You can get Equatio free as a teacher, and to sign up and get it yourself, follow this link, which will be up for the rest of the video. Now we're going to have a look at something slightly different. You may be familiar with Desmos from using it as a graph editor or through Equatio. Well, there's also classroom activities. These classroom activities are great for building understanding, and you can sign in with your Google account. So I've signed in as a teacher, which gives me access to loads of activities, and I can build some of my own. I am in particular going to look at this equation of lines based activity. And you can see that each of the stages is already set up. So I'm going to create a new class code so my classes can take part in these activities and I can see the results. So there's a link that I can follow, which takes me to the activity page. It also gives me something I can show to my students with a join code. But there's a link at the bottom which I'm going to use to directly add. There we go. So the join code's in. You could use your Google account to join as a student, but in this case I'm just going to join and add my name manually. There we go. Student 1. Imaginative. So now we're in as the student and we're taking part in the activity. There's a demo. I see what we need to do. So we need to eliminate all the stars using the ball. Right, that purple dot's going to drop, so we need to adjust the equation to make sure that it takes out all of the stars. So you can see that the students can start adjusting and investigating the equation of the line. By having it all play with a gradient, they'll probably realise that that's not going to do it, and it's the constant they need to adjust. And once they've got it right, off we go. Success. So the students can continue through these activities at their own pace. There you can add instructions along the way if you're creating your own. And they can investigate something that might take a lot longer on a piece of paper, where they have to manually draw every single different graph for a different gradient. Awesome. We're back in the activity pane now, the teacher view, and you can see step by step which students have completed which parts of the activity. And obviously if you've got a bigger class than just one, you'll see them all there together. You can go in and see how they've got on, especially where they've failed a little bit with some of the items. You can see the misconceptions that they're struggling with and help them overcome them. We've switched now into Google Forms, a great tool for not just surveys but quizzes as well. If you want to create your own, there's a link where you can do that straight away. So we're going to do a solving equations quiz. And for the first question, I'm going to put in an equation for them to solve and use Equatio to do that. As long as you've got the Equatio extension installed in Chrome, those little blue icons will appear next to anywhere where you can enter in an equation. Here's the equation that I'm going to get them to solve. Once I've typed it in, or spoken it in, or written it in, I can insert the maths as per usual into my document, and in it goes as an image below that question. Great stuff. I'm going to add another question. Oops, actually, should have put number 1 for the first one. So once again, going to use the Equatio toolbar to write in my equation I need them to solve. I put brackets around the first part because I want it to be the whole numerator. And then just give me a couple of moments to make sure I've got that one as one that's solvable. Perfect. So using Google Forms, we've now created 2 questions where we've got equations in mathematical terminology that they can solve. Next, we're going to have a look at how they might be able to enter their answers using the answer key. So you could make it a multiple choice question and give some options. You can also, though, put in the correct answers. But it's possible that your students will take a number of different ways of answering this question, whether they write x equals or whether they don't. However, you can put in more than one possibility. X equals 4, you could also put in 4, and anything else that they might put in. But don't worry, later on when we go to mark it, you can always override an incorrect answer that you didn't account for and make it correct. I've added some feedback here, and I'm going to do that in the form of a YouTube video. So if I do a search through YouTube, I can find a video that's relevant to the content. Let's have a look. This one looks like an excellent one. Okay, so the feedback's in there with that video just in case they need any support. Let's do the same with the second question. So the form's now ready to send. If I click on send, I can send an email to my whole class, for example, asking them to complete the form and check their score at the end. Because remember, I've put the answers in, so it's automatically going to mark it. And that is sent. Here we are in the student view, and they're starting to fill it in. So they've written in their answers to the first question, x equals 4. For the second question, they're going to click on the blue icon to use Equatio. And they're going to write in their answer using the Equatio tool, which works in Google Forms just the same way it does in Docs, Slides, Sheets. You'll notice though that they're hedging their bets. They're going to give us an answer as an improper fraction, but then also a mixed number as well. And in that goes. And if you remember, when they submit that, we haven't written that in as one of our answers. But we're back in the form now, the teacher view. We're going to go to responses. In responses, you can see there that their answer is in there, so you can know as a teacher that that is correct. However, the form will have marked it incorrect. However, we're going to go into the specific question. So there's question 1. If we flick over, we can go into question 2. Now, it doesn't show up the same way in this response option, but we have seen their correct answer and we know that it's correct. So we can override it and click on save, and their score will reflect that. You'll notice I've been searching for the quadratic formula, and I'm going to click on the Equatio extension and select Screenshot Reader. Drag over one of the written formulas and voila.
The fraction with a numerator negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac and denominator 2a.
So the Screenshot Reader allows us to read out maths that we find both written around and also on the internet. So I've switched here into a GCSE maths paper, and there's a bit of maths that I would like to read. So imagine a student doing a past paper needs to understand some of the maths that's in that paper, and that you're not around as their teacher. So again, back to the extension, I'm going to select the Screenshot Reader option, and then we're going to drag over the mathematics we'd like to understand a little bit better. And it's going to read it to us now.
2 lines. Line 1, f of x equals sine x. Line 2, g of x equals x plus 90.
So even if that doesn't clarify it for them, at least it allows them to come and ask us, what is f of x? You can also copy that and paste that into any Google Docs, slides, sheets or forms that you want to. I'm going to open up a new Google Doc. Select the latex option in the toolbar and paste in that latex I copied. And I can now insert that same mathematics into my document that I got from the exam paper. Great option for students and great for teachers who want to take some of the things from their exam papers and start putting them and adapting them into learning for their students.